Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Mathieu Goel. I'm a doctoral student, and today I will share some tips and some things I've learned about Python over the years, and I hope it will be it's always a bit hard to do that because some of you maybe will know everything and maybe some of you will know practically nothing because you are a newcomer in Python, and so maybe je m'entends.
There's a bit of echo. Is everybody in the room? Please?
1 second.
J'ai l'impression qu'il y a un écho.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's good that way. So I was saying, some people will know practically everything. Maybe some of you will be newcomers and know practically nothing. So yeah, so I will try. I try to balance everything out. So we will see. As I said earlier, there is an exercise progress record here. So you can put your name there. And so for the 4 first sections, there will be an exercise with 2 questions. And so in order for me to know if you finished it or not, you can put a mark. For instance, when you finish the 2 questions of the exercise, you can put the 2 marks here. It's okay if you don't do it. I'm not your teacher. All right. So today we will try to see these 6 sections. I don't know if it's too much or not. We will see. The first is about iterations, so loops basically, but we will see that there is a lot to say about loops, and particularly in Python. The second section is about comprehension. So if you are new in Python, maybe it doesn't mean anything yet to you, but we'll see what it is. The third section will be about strings, and we will see that we could imagine that is very easy, but there is a lot to do to know about strings as well. So we'll see about that. And the fourth section will be about classes, so object-oriented programming. And it will be a an introduction about classes. So we'll not go too far because there is hours to say about that. And to finish, the five and the 6 sections are a bit shorter. It just I wanted to add some things to say about anti-patterns, Python anti-patterns, and useful built-in modules, because often we are not realizing that a lot of boilerplates we are coding are already coded in the in the Python code base. So, but for the 5 and the 6 question, there is no exercise. All right. So just as an introduction, if you do import this in your Python notebook, it's a kind of an Easter egg, and you will have printed the Zen of Python. You can go here to have it in your web browser, and it's some kind of advices for programming that with a bit of humor in it, but I think it's a great introduction. What I tend to have always in mind when I'm coding in Python and in other languages, by the way, is that, for instance, this first sentence, beautiful is better than ugly. Explicit is better than implicit. And readability counts. I think it's one of the most important phrases in sentences in the Zen of Python. Maybe now is better than never, but yeah, and it's some kind of basic advices, but it seems trivial, but sometimes it's not as trivial to implement it. All right, so first iteration. So we'll see that Python make very easy to do iteration loops. Sometimes it's not the most performant way to do, but we will just try to make it the most readable possible. And sometimes with extensive, when you have a lot of data and so on, you will need extra packages to process it with great performance. But for day-to-day usage, we will see how to handle iteration. So, if you come from another language, for instance, I don't know, C++ or maybe Java, often you iterate on an iterable, for instance, a list based on its length. And I try to replicate this. And I think most of us have the first time we went on Python, we try to do this kind of thing, which means we iterate on a range created by the length of the list and so on. But there is a better way to do, because Python make it very easy to iterate on a list just by put the list after the in, and so having the value directly. And it's the same for other type of iterable, for instance, a set. So I created a set directly in the loop, but it's exactly the same thing. So I think it's common for you to do that. And it's the same thing for dicts. We can do a set directly with just by doing that. For instance, instead of this set, we can do that, and it will be the same. It's a better syntax for creating sets. And it's also we can do the same things for dicts. For instance, so I created a dict here, and basically when we put a dict after the in, we will iterate over the keys. So A, B here, for instance. But we can also iterate easily over the values just by using the method values here. And so we will iterate over the values instead of the keys. And often we want to have we want to iterate over the keys and the values in order to to do some computations. And so we can put items here. We can put items here, and the result of each iteration over this method will be a tuple of the key and the value. And so we can do some computation here. And yes, Francois, we can put keys instead of mydict here. We can do mydict.keys. We'll produce an iterator exactly, almost exactly the same that with dict here. And maybe it's more explicit that way. Okay. And also there is a bunch of built-in function in Python. You can find it here. There is these functions that are always available without importing any libraries. And in this function, you have some nice ways to to iterate over iterators. For instance, you have enumerate that allows us to iterate over an iterator and have the position at each iteration. So for instance, you have not only the value, but also the position in the list, for instance. So that is very common to use. And also you have another example is zip. When you want to have like gluing two iterables and iterate on each value at each position of two iterators. And we have to be careful for that, because if you have the first iterator, for instance, that is smaller than the second, or the opposite, it will stop at according the smallest iterator. So here, for example, we never reach the D value because the length of the first iterator is smaller. Okay. Okay, so I will read your question after during the exercise, Maxime. And other examples that are very common and very handy are the all and the any functions, because it checks if all the elements of an iterator of an iterable is true for all, and if it's not the case, it returns false. And the any function return true if one element is true. So for instance, here the first element is true, and that at first it can seems to be not very useful, but when you use that with other syntax of Python, we'll see that it can be very useful, and we will see that a bit after. And also, there is one built-in module called itertools, and in this built-in module, you have a lot of very handy functions to deal with iterables. For instance, you can have cycle that, which will cycle over the over an iterable endlessly. There is a repeat, for instance. Repeat, I never used it, but cycle, I've already used it. There is chain. Chain is very useful to flatten a list of lists, for instance, but we'll see maybe later. Zip longest is opposite of zip, and you will put a default value for when one iterable is too short. And there is permutations and combinations, for instance, that can be very handy instead of re-implementing it or using an extra package, and product as well. Okay, so here is the first exercise if you want to do it. So the first one is write a code that iterates over a string, for instance, the string Python, and check if the letter O is present. So you can do a function or not. And the second question is write a code that prints all the two combinations of the string ABCD. So we saw in itertools that there is a function that will help us. Okay. So again, you can if you finish one of the question, you can put a mark next to your name for me to know if you have already finished or not. Okay. I think I made a mistake at the right beginning of my presentation. That is not correct. So here I will have the position in my list, and then and so it's not the value, but it's the position. So we will not do that in Python. Maybe, I don't know, we could do something like that, for instance. Yeah, and that's why because we never do that, I made the mistake, because it's the anti-pattern.
Can you show again the exercise afterwards?
Sorry?
Can you show again the exercise afterwards, after you've done this? Just because we forgot that was the exercise.
Sorry, it's very hard to hear you. Maybe François, you can.
Maxime requested that you show the exercise again, because we forgot what we had to do. But okay, do you have the possibility to gist your notebook quickly, or to send it to me by email?
Yes, I can gist, but yes, I can gist.
And I will put it on the. Yes, we will. We'll send it to you.
Yes, no issue. Yes, it's a good idea.
And in fact, I will put it on the web page of the. My IP has been blacklisted. Oh no! C'est sa faute.
Like.
Drag and drop.
Ouais. Hop. Create secret gist. I don't know why is it secret, but I can give you the link. I put it in the chat.
I think it's
okay. I will try to see if I can open it. You fix it? Okay, thank you.
You want me to send an email?
No, it's okay. Maxime is going to fix everything.
Okay.
Mathieu? Yeah.
Ouais.
Can you precise what is the two combinations of the string? I don't understand exactly what it is.
So you want a
definition of the two combination of the string?
Yeah. So
do you want AC, for example?
Yeah. Yes. ABCD. And you want AB, AC, AB.
Okay.
Okay.
But
yeah,
you don't want you want substrings.
Yeah, you have an example here, for instance.
Okay.
You have ABCD, and the two into combination. You want all the combination you can make in ABCD.
Okay.
With the length of 2.
Okay, thank you.
And it's different for to permutation, because permutation you have AB and BA, where here you will not have BA, for instance. You will just have AB. Okay, I will wait a couple of minutes, and then I will carry on.
Ok, c'est bon pour le notebook, on le voit.
Ok, super. Okay, so maybe I can put a quick correction. So for the first one, write a code that iterates over the string Python to check if the letter O is present. So here I didn't make a function, but in real life I would do that in a function, for instance. And so I had to, but I didn't do a function because I wanted to show you something that we don't do often in Python, but that sometimes is very cool to do, in my opinion, even though it's not very readable, is the for else. So for instance, we iterate over Python. So this is a string, and if the a string is an iterable too. So if we put a string after the in, we will iterate over the letter. We can see a string like, an array, for instance, an array of a character. And so if the letter is O, we can print or return true if we were in a function. And we can break right after it because we just checking if one letter O is present. We are not, for instance, counting the number of letters. And so, but if I don't do this, and if the letter O is not present, it will print nothing after. If it will print nothing if the letter O is not present. Whereas if the letter O is present, it will print true. And I wanted it to print false, but I didn't want to do a function for this. And so I use the for else method syntax. Sorry. And so the for else syntax is that it will go into the else if the for didn't break. So here is exactly what we wanted to do, because if the letter O is present, it will break, and so it will not go into the else. But if we reach the end of the string, we didn't find the letter O, it will go. It will not. There is no break, and so we go into the else. And so if there is no O, for instance, it will print false. Okay, so that's why. So the more idiomatic way is to do a function for that. But I wanted to show you the syntax. And I put one more advanced solution, even though, again, I'm not sure if it's the most readable, but we can use the any function as we saw earlier. And in the any function, we can put a generator. So a generator, maybe you are not aware of what it is, but we will see a bit later. And so right, and so this will produce some kind of an array of true and false, and it will put true in the array if the letter is O, and false otherwise. And so we can have and any will return true if we have one true on the iterable, else false. And so here we will have true because there is one true in the array.
Mathieu,
ouais.
2 remarks. Yes. First, the generator, any generator will never produce an array. It's the benefit of a generator.
Yeah, of
you
course.
Don't produce the array in memory. It's very important. So, but you will keep track of the status of the Boolean, and this is enough to answer the question any. And this is the main point. for generator.
Yes.
And second point, the third solution to your exercise, as I wrote in the chat, is even more simpler and optimized, as pointed by Maxime. It's only O in Python, and it's enough.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, of course, that's correct. Yeah, we could. Yeah, so we could do something like that, for instance.
You don't even need the infra.
Sorry. Yeah, and yeah, you could even do that. And that would be yeah my mistake. Because this will return a value, and it would be true if it's the case, and false if it's not the case. So we don't even need to do if else, because it will return exactly the value we want. And so we could do in a return of a function, for instance, instead of do two returns. So this would be it's the most idiomatic way. You're right. And for the generator, yes, but I didn't want to go into the details of what the generator is. So that's why I said this now. But yeah, it's the easiest solution. Right. So let's go to the second solution. Here, I just wanted to make you use this kind of functions, because it returns the generator, and so you have to exhaust this generator, and this generator is returning a tuple of value, and so we can access to each value of the tuple by doing exactly like a dict with dot items, for instance. And so there is two ways you can do. Most likely you will do something like that, because you will want to use the value A and B, for instance. But if you just want to print all the combinations, you can do it. You can put the generator in a list, for instance, and so you will have all the values directly. It will exhaust the generator. Okay. So now we will see.
For me, it doesn't work, but I think because Itertools is unknown in I need to import it.
I need to import it, yes.
Sorry, I don't hear anything.
The question, there was a question by Ludo because Itertool was not working. So the answer is that you need to import it Itertools in your notebook before using it.
Yeah. So for instance, here I imported Itertools, and here again, but I could once you imported Itertools in one cell, it will be imported for all the other cells. Right? Okay, so now we'll tackle the comprehension. So again, it's an introduction. So for instance, so I try to craft an example. Often the newcomers don't know what is a list or a dict comprehension, and so we'll do something like that. So is a trivial example, for instance. But imagine you have an original list, and you want to. It's a list of integers, for instance, and you want to increment 1 for each of the value of the list. You can create a new list and do something like that. Append the value of the original list plus 1 for each of the value of the original list. So it works, but I think there is something more readable to use, and it's list comprehension, and it's a syntax exactly to do that, and it's very powerful. for instance, you can create another list by using this syntax. So it's brackets to create a list, and you can, in fact, put the for syntax inside the bracket and do for value in the original list. Here we access the value and we put +1. I don't know if you ever use that already. And use if, yes, and we can use if in comprehension list and set and dict, and we will see that just after it. And also, by the way, you can override your original list even though it's in it by doing that. So for instance, you can do that and it will work just the same. Because this will be evaluated first, and then the original list will point to this structure. And it's the same for dict, for instance. So it's the same for set, but it's almost the same. The same syntax. Instead, it's like this. And for dict, it can be a bit less, a bit more complicated. But in fact, if you use that often, it will not be complicated. You can, for instance, you can use items to access to the key and the value, and then do key and column value +1, for instance, because here we want to increment the value of each value of the D. And so it's practically the same, but we have this. It can look like a set because you have this character, but Python knows that is not a set because you have this syntax with the column. Okay. And as Maxime said, we can put also conditions in a comprehension, like here, if you wanted, for instance, to have to make increment the value of the list and filter out the if the value is 2, for instance, we could have we could add the condition in the original solution, but we can also, after the for syntax, we can simply add the if condition, and it would not work if the if was before. So and often it's very handy to do that if you want to filter values in a list, for instance, or an iterable. You simply have to iterate over the iterable and put an if, and it's I find that more readable than a bunch of lines. But you lose an element. What if if you want to keep the 2, you simply you remove the list. That's the purpose of the list, Marceau, is to lose the element. I wanted to have a new list, incremented by 1, except I want to filter out when the value is 2. If you, so I want to add 1 to all the elements except 2. So it's a different exercise. In this case, you can do then use it. Yeah, you can do that instead, but it's a different syntax, right? But you can do if value différent de 2, else val.
Not value, it's val. You wrote value instead of val.
Ah, sorry. Yes, and that would make the trick, but it's, I think and that was my point of the next slide. Here we reach, you know, the limit of the readability of a comprehension, in my opinion, because the limit is different for everyone. But, you know, here the example, it's starting to getting more complex. And when you are, you know, reading a code that is not yours or your code, but 2 months ago, this can be a bit tricky to understand, whereas a classic for here, for instance, would be maybe more readable. But, and we will see also in the next slide, because we can also do nested loops inside the comprehension. And here is starting to getting more complex. Sometimes the nested loops are fine, you know, not in readability, but you know, you're reaching the limit, so you have to be careful. And for instance, here you have you know, a list of lists, and let's say you want to flatten the list. So if I want to flatten the list, I can just remove the condition, and I would have the list flattened. So it's a nice trick to know how to flatten a list, by the way, a list of lists, sorry. But maybe I can add a condition of I want to keep only the even numbers. And so I can add this condition here. But you see that you have one for, the other for next to it, so the for nested, and it says the opposite way. Huh? You have you can iterate over the rows here, and after you iterate for each row, you iterate over the value of the row. So these values here, for instance, and then the value, you can apply a condition here. But you see, we are reaching the, you know, the limit of the, you know, the readability. Maybe I will not do, I would never do 3 nested loops inside the comprehension. And you know, this if would me think about not doing a comprehension list, maybe. It depends. Okay, so here is another example, and I see that we are. I was a bit, you know, ambitious about the time. Write a code that will convert a list of int into a list of strings. You can use the str function, built-in function that is accessible without having any built-in module, having to import any built-in module. And write a code that will filter out all of the int value from a list. And the tip is to check the isInstance built-in function in order to check the type of a variable, of an object, rather. So because we are, I will give you not a lot of time because we are a bit late.
Mathieu, je me demande si tu n'as pas inversé deux mots. Il y a marqué, le deuxième truc, il y a marqué that will filter all out the int values, I guess.
Ah,
Out
yes.
int values.
Yes, sorry. It's a change that I made 5 minutes before the presentation. So of course it's not correct.
Pendant qu'on est dans les typos, dans ton premier slide ou deuxième slide, tu as écrit pattern avec un seul T, hein, alors qu'il y en a deux.
Ah.
Tu le corrigeras tranquillement plus tard.
Hein. Ouais.
Et developing, je me demandais si le participe présent, il n'y avait pas deux P aussi.
Ah oui, je me suis demandé aussi.
Je ne sais jamais s'il y en a un ou deux et il faudrait vérifier. Il n'y en a qu'un?
Je dirais qu'il n'y en a qu'un en anglais.
Un en anglais et deux en français, je dirais.
Oui.
Je ne sais jamais s'il faut doubler les consonnes.
Peut-être un peu double que pour nous, peut-être de faire un peu plus.
D'accord. Et le participe passé, il n'y en a pas deux quand même? Develop, non?
Non, François, arrête d'insister.
C'est une langue vraiment aussi à la con que le français.
Je pense qu'il n'y en a qu'un.
Non, mais ok.
Par contre, j'ai toujours un problème de compréhension de l'exercice. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire convertir en entier en
C'est juste la chaîne correspondante. Si ton entier c'est 12, la chaîne c'est 1, 2.
Yes, so convert a list is yes. So the predicate here is to have a list a list of integers, and you want to have instead of 1, for instance, you want to have the character 1 inside the list. And so so this is the solution. For instance, you have the original list, and I would do a comprehension list with applying the function str to convert an object into a string, and it would create exactly what we want. Okay, and for the solution to filter out all of the int values from a list, for instance, you have a list with integers values and for instance strings values, and you can do so you don't need to do something on the values, so you can do val for val in original list.
Yeah, there's that, and also it's the old version of your exercise, I think, where you wanted to filter the string values of the list, but now in the text of the exercise, you say that you want.
I added out here to say that I want to remove the int, and so keeping only the non-int objects.
So in that, maybe you want to do if not is instance val int.
So
you see what
here
I mean?
You have if, so you keep the value if.
Yeah, but you could have something else than a string in the list.
So,
if you have an object.
Yeah, I understand. Yes.
Depends exactly what you want to do, but
okay, so I so if for instance, so the correct solution,
you probably want to do that.
The correct solution would be that, I think.
Yes.
Sorry. And so you don't need to be equal false, because the is instance will return directly to Boolean. Okay, so sorry, but again. Okay, so now we have not a lot of time, but I will try to carry on. We'll talk about strings. So it's a bit easier. As we already know, the strings are iterable, so you can iterate over the characters. And also there is an interesting way to merge a list. For instance, a list of string. So I think it has to be a list of strings, by the way. And you can join the values to create a string. And so so it's a bit of odd syntax, I think. And so you will have this string here where you will put what you want to put between the values. For instance, here I want to have simply a space between the values, and it's a separator, and so then it will produce a string with all the values separated by what you put in this string. And I think it's a bit odd, but yeah. So it's a bit of remembering process, and you can put \n, for instance. You want to have the separator to be a new line, for instance. It works, of course. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time on F strings because it's very, very handy. So since Python 3.6, you can do this syntax. You put an F in front of your string, and then you can use this kind of syntax where you can have a statement which can be evaluated, which will be evaluated and converting into a string if possible. And it will, take place on the string. So here is a simple example. You have a variable, and you want to, include your variable inside of your string. You can do something like this. And now I always use F strings for that. And you are not. It's not necessary to put only variables. You can put statement that will be evaluated. For instance, this is a more complex statement, and it will be evaluated first, and then it will produce an integer, and this integer will be converted into a string, which is possible, and integrated into the string.
Mathieu, just a small typo. I guess that in the second version you want to put n instead of 100 explicitly. In the last.
Yeah.
The following line.
Yeah. Sorry. And so yeah. So basically, I wanted to show you this syntax because sometimes people that are doing Python for a long time don't have this in mind because it appears later. And also in what is nice in F strings that you can use all the tricks you can do with format, which mean, for instance, do this kind of thing, which is to round a float. I have a float here, and I just want to keep the 2 digits after the the two. Yeah, you you understand me, and I can do column point to F, and it will keep only these 2 values and strip all other values, and it's often nicer for printing, clean, it's cleaner. And also you can put an equal here to have some kind of debugging, very simple debugging feature, where you will end up automatically to have the variable, the name of the variable equal the value of the variable. And so it can be nice to have that in mind when you are debugging, because sometimes when it's complicated, you want to remember with the print that was this variable that had this value, instead of just having the value. Oops. Oh, maybe it's, yeah, I don't, yeah. Up. That is the difference. Okay. So maybe we can not doing this third exercise just to have the time to tackle the third section. You can do that as an homework if you want to. Yeah, and so if you do as an homework, I will not speak too much about the solution. So classes, I wanted to do a brief introduction about classes. So yeah, it's very readable and clear to do classes in Python. Maybe you already use that a lot. And what I wanted to point out is that you don't have to create yourself getter and setters, because it will be done automatically by Python. For instance, I have this class, and in this class we create an attribute dynamically, and then this attribute can be accessed just by doing point and the name of the attribute. So you don't have to do, get name return self name. That is not, you don't need to do that at all. And also you can create, of course, you can create your own method. You have to include self if you want to access to attributes and other methods of the class. And you do inheritance by just adding the superclass here. And often, just to speak about the style, often we tend to we rather prefer composition over inheritance. What is composition? Is to have so maybe it's not the most clearer example, but is to have an attribute that is in fact an object created by another class. You declare yourself, and often it's clearer to do that than doing inheritance of inheritance of inheritance. I saw that a couple of times when you have long chain of inheritance, and here it's maybe I try to do one example where composition would be better. All right. And there is no, since Python 3.7, there is data class, but I will not explain that because we don't have a lot of time. So there is a final exercise, and I wanted to have time to speak about anti-pattern. So the first anti-pattern is to reassign a function, a built-in function that is built in. For instance, str is a function already always there in a Python instance, and so but nothing prevents you to do that. And so you could reassign because you have your string and you don't have any name for that.
I did exactly that for the first exercise, and I had to restart my kernel to get rid of it.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a common mistake, and so because in other languages there is other built-in function, and so this would reassign the function, and Python will not tell you that you reassign the function. It's okay for Python. And so if then I try to do str of this value, it's already a string. Str of this int, for instance, it will throw a type error, and I can remove the try except to show you. It will do a try error saying that str object is not callable because it's a string. Is not a function anymore. So that is the first, common mistake. And another common mistake is more complicated to catch, but I think everyone who are doing Python for a long time have encountered this problem, is to put default argument, put mutable object in default argument. For instance, so when you put so the coloring is I changed my default. The coloring is custom basically. So you can put default value with an equal. This way, if we don't put a value here, we will have an empty list. For instance, here. And so it can be handy, I want to append a value to a list, and if I don't put a list, I want to have an empty list. So it's not problematic. And but here, instead of having one and then like just a list of length 1 with 5 in it, because it's it should create an empty list and add 5 here. We would have 1 and 1 5, as if you remembered what you did with the function before, and it should not, right? And it's because basically this is a value that is created, and it's an object that is being created the first time you call append without the value in list, and so you will use the same object the second time, and because it's mutable, there is already a value in it, and so you will just append something in not in an empty list, but a list with a 1 in it. And that, even though you know it, sometimes you make the mistake. And so basically, the things we all have to use to avoid that is to never put a mutable object inside the default as a default argument. And when so when we want to have this behavior, for instance here, to tackle the issue, we can put a known value, and inside the function saying if in list is known or if not in list. Maybe in list is known is better. It's the same thing basically. you return a new list with a value in it, and that will prevent any mutable issue. Okay.
A question about that?
Yes.
Sorry?
Is it really an issue? It can be interesting to have this kind of value.
Sometimes, but most of the time, that is not what you want.
Yeah, so maybe you want to do that, but in this case, it's very not readable because when you would want to do something to do it different for the readability.
I can't remember how many hours I've lost in total because of this.
Yeah.
Very subtle bug then.
Yeah, because when you have a complex project, it's easy to be tricked by that.
So
okay.
Sometimes it's interesting to have a variable that is in memory for each code.
Yeah, but then define before the first call and pass it as a parameter. I think it's more clear.
Yeah. Yeah, one case I can think of is that if, for example, you want to record something in some list, and if the list is not precise, then you want to use a default list, which is always the same. But even doing so is a bit weird, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so to finish very quickly, there is Python have built-in modules you can import anytime, and there is a lot of them, and it's very convenient. One very convenient one, in my opinion, is collections, because you can have access to counter and default dict, for instance, functions. Default dict allow you to have a dict with a default value. For instance, here I don't have assigned a value to C, but I made a default int, and so in this case the default value will be 0. So it can be, and if I had just a dict instead of a default dict, I would have an error. Yeah, I can access to the error, but I have the error. And counter allow you to count, values in lists. It can be also very handy. Passlib, it's a very, very nice way to dealing with pass in Linux and Windows and so on. And there is a lot more built-in module like datetime, functools, math, pickle, and so on.
And I would add that many of these modules were covered in previous sessions of the Python workshop. So if you have a look on the website, you will see many things about these modules. Thank you very much, Mathieu.
Thank you.